Auburn is not a place, it is a people. The loveliest village on the plains is more than a college sports venue, more than a university filled with historic buildings, more than a quaint little southern town. Its worth lies within its people, those that call Auburn home, whether that be for a single day at a time or for a lifetime. Much like our legendary Toomer's oak trees, our stories are the product of a firm foundation laid in the beginning of our Auburn story. These are the stories of the Auburn family. These are their roots.
War Eagle Auburn family, and welcome back to Auburn Roots. This is episode 36 of our journey of exploring and sharing the stories of your Auburn family members. On this episode, we're going to be talking to another member of the E2C Network Booster Club. If you want to find out more information about how you can become part of that, check out the links in the description for this or visit patreon.com/E2C Network. But more importantly, he's got a pretty cool and unique story. If you've listened to our episodes on the network and E2C extra shows, you will have heard an episode about Auburn and the game of Minecraft. So you probably are familiar somewhat with his voice. I'd like to welcome back onto the E2C Network, but for the very first time, sharing his Auburn story, Mr. Chris Smith. Chris, welcome in War Eagle.
Thank you, War Eagle.
So I think what we want to do, obviously, we're going to talk about the Auburn and Minecraft thing. That's the biggest thing that probably some people will connect with you that have been listeners and followers of our network before. But let's learn a little bit about you and maybe even a little bit about you outside of Auburn. Give us a little bit of a background on yourself. Where are you from? Where were you born? All that kind of stuff. You don't have to tell us how old you are if you don't want to, but just kind of give us some background.
Yeah, no problem. I'm from Dothan, and my parents, Jim and Nancy Smith, they've been dating since they were 13, whatever. My uncle played baseball briefly for Auburn, and my dad ran track under Hutzel and Rosen. The 440 high hurdles, actually. Why? I don't know. And when I was young, a family friend and a long time booster, Dr. Dan Helms, took me to my first game, and Section 11, parked right in front of Allison Hall, throwing the football down in the ditch. Just that smell. I just fell in love with it instantly. I mean, Dad graduated from here. We're always a fan, but then that first game day is just something else.
Yeah.
And so Dad came here, and my mom, was told she was going to the university. So it's so she did, but unfortunately her mom passed her freshman year. My dad was like, okay, enough of this. So he went and what I call rescued her from Alabama and brought her back. And then that's from history. I mean, that's it. I was it was real funny. One of the little things when Dad moved me into my first apartment, he's like, you got a glass? I'm like, sure. He went to the faucet and he got him a little bit of water. Like, yep, water still tastes like rocks. Like, what?
It probably to this day still is the exact same taste.
That's how to. So I had a phobia about the tap water in Auburn the whole time I was here because of that. But anyway, that's. But I was in the Navy for a couple of years on the USS America. I worked in the public affairs office and ended up being the backup sports anchor on the closed circuit, newscast we had out there. And then while I was in the Navy, like about the Minecraft and game development stuff, I was I saw that movie, The Mind's Eye and Lawnmower Man, whatever, when I was on the ship. And so I got out of the Navy wanting to go into 3D animation. And so we went and flew down to Ringling School of Art and Design in Sarasota because, I came back looking for schools and they were just now standing them up. And so it's kind of like, all right, threw together a portfolio, got accepted to that, just a startup program, but $12,500 a semester. I was like, I'm not that sure what I'm. So I got to go to Auburn. Oh, shucks, with all my friends,
It's going to be such a terrible experience.
Terrible, yeah.
The worst part about it was the tap water, apparently.
Yeah, it was true. And the heat.
And the heat. Yeah. But that's pretty much the Southeast, I mean, you're from Dothan. You should know. Yeah. Especially, Dothan's further south too. It's kind of Dothan to me, and I'm not a native Dothanite. I don't know what you call people from Dothan.
That's good enough.
Dothanite. But to me, that sounds like no man's land, where you're like so close to the beach where you might get some of that sea breeze, but then you're down in like I guess you'd call it the Piedmont of the South, where everything just settles. So I can imagine that in Dothan, the heat and the humidity is just the worst ever.
It's a sauna. It is basically I mean, I moved from Dothan to Orlando to go to grad school. And when I hopped out of the car in Orlando, I was like, wow, it's cool down here. Because there was actually a breeze coming across the peninsula of Florida. And there's nothing in Dothan. Love Dothan. Family's there. Friends are there. But man, is it hot.
Let me ask you this about Dothan. We'll kind of tie Auburn into this a little bit. I think there are some towns that come close to the idea or the feeling that Auburn gives. I kind of equate Dothan to that a little bit because it's a small town that has some big elements to it. Not when I say big, I don't mean Montgomery big, Birmingham big, Mobile, right. Huntsville, all that stuff. But, it can be a little bit more populous, especially, I don't know, certain times of the year or something like that. Do you find any correlation to that, or is that just me kind of shooting into the wind and not really know what I'm talking about?
Well, there's a lot of Auburn people down there. And so it does have a good, you're not outnumbered, listening to you and Van talk, his Sylacauga upbringing is nothing like that. And you could say it was 50-50. I would guess, at least now, maybe not when I was little, but yeah, I guarantee you it's, you're not, isolated Aubie down there. So you have that, that feel.
It's close enough to Auburn too that I think a lot of us invade down there. It's kind of similar to West Georgia. That's why they like to throw that around in our faces sometimes. That they call us West Georgia University, even though there is a West Georgia University. We won't start that tonight. No. We just call them East Mississippi. We can just keep it going around in a circle and not making sense either way. But yeah, I get that feeling that Dothan's one of those places, even if it is 50-50 now, because let's be honest, they've had their success. We're talking about Alabama. It's very easy for the Walmart fans to jump on and come up out of the woodwork because they now want to tie themselves to that. So I could understand if it's a little bit more down. But to me, Dothan, so close to Auburn, so maybe like easy to get to somewhat going through the back roads, kind of probably has still some of that Auburn feel to it in my mind, at the very least.
It's a good place. I'm glad. It was a great place to grow up. Mm-hmm. And me and all my buddies that went to Auburn with us, my dad called us a pack of dogs because he told me when you go to school and all your friends, y'all aren't gonna stay together. And then, well, guess I was wrong because we're all still close, and yeah. It's great. So.
Well, and you guys went through some very important, informative times in your lives together. So, you're going to probably have those bonds that last a lifetime, even if they, you get somewhat distant and apart, whether that be actual physical distance, especially when I think you tie something like Auburn in with that, it kind of makes you feel a little bit more connected and helps you stay a little bit more connected. Like you could not see them for a couple of years and be just go on the street and see them. All of a sudden it's like it was just yesterday hanging out with them. But I do want to talk about a couple of things that I'm kind of fascinated by. One, you're a jack of all trades. You got history with baseball and track and field at Auburn. You spent time in the Navy, sports anchor, Minecraft. Literally, you are just one of the more diverse guests that I've talked to on Auburn Roots. So I don't even know where to begin. I guess I should start here. I want to thank you for your service in the Navy, and appreciate you doing that for our country. What's the Auburn fandom like within the military branches? Is there a lot of us out there, or did you find anybody to connect with there?
Actually, yes, there are a few people. The guy that came and did the weather, which back then was like a chart on a piece of cardboard, with stickies on it. Glenn Newton, he tailgates some spot. He just sent me a message a few weeks ago saying, "Hey, if you come to a game, you need to hook us up." But he's an Auburn guy, and yeah, there are some. I think a lot of pilots and stuff come from Auburn, and they're. I was enlisted, so I just kind of did my time and got out.
Right.
But yeah, it's I believe it's pretty tight, and now with all the networking that you can do, I believe they stay pretty tight knit.
Did you have opportunities while you were away serving to listen to Auburn games, or I would imagine, just kind of assuming the time frame here, that TV wasn't as accessible and able
Right.
to, were you ever separated from that and having to get your Auburn news, just through
With
information, other means, or were you able
letters.
to letters? That's how you got this?
Yeah, I was on an aircraft carrier, so a lot of times, we got TV on tape, and we played them and did closed circuit newscasts each night, and we would mail tapes of that newscast out to all the other ships in the battle group. So I'd be walking around in Norfolk, and people would be like, "Hey, I know you." It's like, "What? Oh yeah, gosh, it was just doing my job, but everybody knew who I was, which it worked out well. It came time to leave because on my check off list to get out, everybody's, "Oh, hey, yeah, here, great, give me that. I'll sign you off real quick," because they knew who I was. I wasn't just some dude wanting their time. So yeah, it worked out pretty well.
Okay. Well, at least there was some way to get news, albeit very, very, very late. Could you imagine now if the kick six had happened during that time and you've had to wait weeks, maybe days, weeks to actually find this news out? And everybody's like, "Where you been?" On an aircraft carrier, I can't get the news like you guys can.
Yeah, actually, we got the news on teletype. So there's this huge machine that sits in a corner that sounds like a typewriter. And it's just got the AP stream, I think. So we would get scores, an hour or so after they're live, but we're the only people who had those scores to give to people. So it's whenever we tried to make our office patch one time, our division officer said, our slogan should be "The news is what we give you," because we could give them anything we're like, "No, let's not do that. It might not go too well." But anyway, the Navy was a good experience. I got GI Bill, of course, and then made a few friends that I've kept through the years. So
awesome. You also spent some time sports anchoring, which it's not something I was aware of for you. So give me a little bit more information about that. Like, what were you? Is it just general sports? Were you covering a specific area of that when you were doing that?
Yeah, we just we had a sports segment, and we had a half-hour newscast, and then a sports segment, which just basically running down scores. We didn't have any video or anything. It's just reading the news.
So you didn't get any opportunities to throw some like Auburn jabs in there at every time Alabama would come up or something like that?
No, I didn't. It was most of the time I was doing it was springtime and summer, and so it was just baseball, mundane baseball scores, which nothing like that. We just
just basically just read down the sheets and just kind of got in and out.
Yep.
Well, let's talk a little bit about actually getting to Auburn. With having ties to Auburn baseball and track and field, you have told me that you were a lifelong Auburn fan. So was there really any other school that you at least considered other than Auburn, or was it just, nope, this is where I'm going?
No, absolutely not. I was always kind of wondering what I was going to do, because I never thought anything on the art track could actually make any money, and that's been a struggle. But it's if I was going to go to any four-year university, it was going to be Auburn. Because I was the most over the top fan as a kid. I put way too much emphasis on the success of Auburn athletics for such a long time. And it wasn't even me. I got to Auburn, and another late friend of mine, Billy Solomon, he was also a huge Auburn fan, and we would get introduced by people that didn't know that we knew each other. It was like, "Man, you got to meet this guy. He is as big a fan as you are." And we'd just be like, "Oh, nice to meet you, man." He grew up 7 houses down from me. So it wasn't even, but we just roll with it, because we're just, we grew up, huge fans together. And, but it was that meant a lot to me at Auburn, where everybody is an Auburn fan. It happened at least twice. People, "You've got to meet this guy. He's like as big an Auburn fan as you." I'm like, "Sweet. Who is it?" "Oh, okay, it's Billy."
That's this guy, I know.
It's all right.
It's funny that you say that. And I'm thinking of like times in my life that I've had similar happen. There's always this association. You'll go, whether, let's just say it's at work, they'll find out you're an Auburn fan, and usually it's pretty obvious. And then they're like, "You got to meet this other guy's an Auburn fan." And they always talk about us like we're these oddities and that we're just so over the top mega fans, which we might be. I'm not going to, and that's not something to be necessarily ashamed of.
Yeah.
But why do you think that is? Why are people so adamant that every Auburn fan they meet is this not over the top maybe, but this excited about it or this big about it? Like, any idea why that is?
Good question. Maybe it's I never admit it, but I mean a little bit of envy because it's like God doesn't see how much it means to us. It's just like wow, must be special. And they go home and so you hop on Google. What's so special about it? But they're not going to admit to you. No way.
No, I think they're probably hitting on something there, that it's just kind of, they can tell something's a little bit different about us, whether that be a good or a bad thing. We obviously think it's a good thing, but I wonder if that's kind of what it is. It's like, God, I mean, I've met fans before, but this is something a little bit different. And I think that's, if you're trying to explain to someone what the Auburn family is, I think that's the best explanation that you can give them. That, do you notice something different about me than any other fan out there?
So why do they love it so much?
It exudes out of you and it kind of encompasses all of you. And, it's the whole of the Auburn experience, as also said, which is a phrase that I use all the time here. You arrived at Auburn in 94, got there, and you eventually ended with graphic design. Did you decide from the very get-go that's the route you were going, or did you kind of take a little bit of time to figure out what you wanted to do while you were at Auburn?
Yeah, I mean, I instantly went into graphic design, and I mean, I almost changed majors a couple of times, but it just wasn't worth it. I was so far along, and I mean, the higher level you get, it's a lot more fun.
Right.
You finally get to do some really cool projects, and by that time, I mean, everything's rolling, and it's good. But never anything other than graphic design.
So what are some of the classes that a graphic design person, if you can, I mean, I don't know if you can remember all of them. I barely remember what I had for breakfast this morning, so I won't be shocked if you can't remember some. But like, for those of us that aren't graphic designers, any like insight into what the program was like there during your time?
It was like the first year is just core art skills. And, it was kind of irritating at first. And I said, golly, I mean, I want to get on a computer or whatever, but no, it's art fundamentals. And they're just, you spend a lot of the classes, you'll spend a half hour or half the class painting, drawing, doing something. And second half, you pin it all up on the wall and you just drill each other's stuff to pieces, and that's the only way you get good. I mean, you learn that your critique's not bad, and it's really, and there's a lot of it. There was a lot of that, and you grow. I mean, you grow as an artist and everything. And it's, I thought I was good, as a kid. Oh, you're such a good artist, whatever. I didn't know crap. It's just that first year is it's kind of like, okay, you see how much you don't know, and then later on, they slowly started us letting you get to the computers or whatever. But like some of the most, I guess, memorable classes, is figure construction, which the final was you had, I think, a couple of pieces of paper. One was an overlay, and you had to draw a complete skeleton by memory, and then draw the muscles over it on the overlay, and how difficult that was. It's like, golly, and studying for that. It's just all the stuff you forget. And then like, of course, the 400 level visuals classes where you get to, just do your own thing.
Right.
And a few, I got to do, a few independent studies in art history on a few of the, my favorite artists. And that was a whole lot of fun, especially with that humongous library.
Yeah. Did you ever get lost in that library?
Yep, but I knew right where the place was that had all the old art books.
I remember the first time I walked in, I can't even pronounce the name, Ralph's RBD library. RBD. And, I literally turned a corner and I had to call someone. I was like, I have no clue where I am. I need someone to come get me. I'm scared. So, you make me feel better about myself.
I'm going to be here forever. It's almost like you are talking about Haley Center on that other episode. It's like, yep, some people are still trapped in there. I started laughing. I thought that was really funny.
Did you ever have any classes in Haley Center?
I did. My first quarter there, home quarters back then. I'm sitting there, and it's on the south side, some theater seating or whatever. and look up, and Damian Craig walks in, and he has a couple of his friends with him. He walks in, like just arrived on campus or whatever. And he's a nice guy, but he was the one thing I noticed about him, he had a polo shirt on. He just had the cuffed sleeves, and his throwing arm was bigger than his other arm. And I was like, okay, I guess so. You can throw the football that much, but you probably couldn't tell if that cuff was just a little tighter on that throwing arm than it was on the other one. I was just like, all right. So I'm not going to tell him, but just, hey,
leave it to the graphic designer to notice the size of a cuff and how it's struggling with one arm of Damian Craig over the other.
But it was, I was just glad he reported.
Did you have any other classes with any other Auburn athletes that you remember?
No, I didn't have many classes. There weren't a whole lot of. I mean, I might have had an art history class with somebody, but I don't remember. A bunch of other run-ins that not in class. Like a lot of times, whenever I recreate some conversations and stuff, I'll impersonate people. I mean, it's not meant to be mocking ever. Well, maybe for one.
Maybe for one person.
Oh, I hear there's a former basketball coach that you don't think too highly of. Right?
Oh, which one? I'm kidding.
So yeah, and I have a football coach that I kind of feel the same way about.
And
that was a really funny story about this. I mean, I definitely don't want to get off into being negative, but Terry Bowden, my gosh.
I just had to spit it out, didn't you?
It's right during my time there, and I described this as the impossibly consistent spiral downwards the entire time I was in school, the football program. And I mean, by the time it just infuriates me thinking about it. By the time he got to playing with just his recruits in 97, we got held to negative rushing yards 3 times that year. 2.2 yards per touch average in the SEC. And not a single Terry Bowden running back recruit ran for over 500 yards in a season. That's
not Auburn. It really isn't Auburn.
And in grad school, this is where I was going. All that for this. We went to this barbecue place that's like a block north of my school, and we're sitting there, and I have on this hat, worn out, just old, beat up Auburn hat, and I look up, and Terry Bowden's walking right towards me, and he looks at me as he's walking, looks up at the hat, and he cuts his eyes back straight and walks right by. I was just like, you better keep on walking. It's not that I would do anything, but it's just the fact that he didn't say anything made my day. I'm just like, don't talk to me, man.
Not fond memories of one Terry Bowden.
No.
Now it started out good for him.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the story of most coaches. Most, I say, not every coach, but they kind of have that one era where they're really good, and usually it ends up with a firing these days, at least. So that was the case for Terry Bowden.
Yeah, it seemed like the post-game call-in shows were on loop for like 4 years. It'd be like, War Eagle coach, War Eagle. I know you hear this every week, but are you going to recruit running backs that are more than 170 pounds? Markeith Cooper hits the line going pretty fast. He never comes out the other side. And it's like, Terry Bowden's like, work done. Scat back. Daddy did it like this. We're going to do it like this. We're not going to recruit. Gosh, and it continually didn't work. It just got worse and worse and worse. He couldn't see it. It's like, that's the negative part. I'm done talking about it. Everybody got it out.
You weren't super negative. It just, opening up your soul a bit, the frustration, because I can understand being there in a time where we have a small window of opportunity where we're actually students there on campus, and you want it to be special. And football is the engine that drives the car, as I like to say. So it's, in some respects, it's the most important thing. Doesn't make everything else not important, but it is kind of the engine that drives the car that is Auburn. So if that's a big part of your experience at Auburn and it's not going really well. That kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand the frustration that's built up over time. You're there from 94 to 99. So if I have my math correct, you see the end of the Terry Bowden era and you see the beginning of the Tommy Tuberville era. Is that correct?
Yep.
So what's your impressions, you as a student, you've gone through, as you called, the spiral of Terry Bowden, same thing, nothing changing, and eventually he leaves or gets let go. Tommy Tuberville comes in. I'm not coming, or they're going to have to take me out of here in a pine box, Ole Miss coach. What are your thoughts on that? What were your feel? Take me back to that time.
I was, that meeting, he's a great guy. I didn't really have an impression on him at that time. Honestly, I didn't know. I was just kind of disenchanted by that time. Anyway, with football, I'm just ready to graduate, and I'll get it, get my fandom back in order, whenever they get the football program back in order. It was never like that, but I still cared. But I just, no, but I didn't have a view on Tuberville. I mean, I love the guy. I mean, I think he did a great job. I think the only thing that he really did wrong was, he didn't reach out and get top level coordinators, but he ran the program like we wanted it to be run, clean, making men, out of boys, and just, he did so much right. I feel that it's, when you just, you can rehash the problems. But it's just, he didn't go out and get, he did,
right.
Like when you got Petrino, that was what he should have tried to emulate over and over again, going and getting that.
And Gene Chizik, he brought them in. That was kind of like the sweet spot for Tommy, was when he brought those two in right about the same time and got the thing churning about the way you wanted it to. And then after, I agree with that. And he had that air about him of what they call it, the good old boy club or something like that. Just we're promoting from within, which can be a great thing. But sometimes a little fresh blood can do wonders. And I think that's if that's his biggest knock that we can come up with on him, that's a pretty good stint at Auburn. It's probably why he was so quickly brought back into the circle. Not that when you're an Auburn coach that you're like pushed away forever. It'll be the same with Coach Malzahn at some point. But with Tuberville, it was just like, I think most of the fans really didn't want him gone. They just wanted something to change, and they weren't ready for that big of a change. But anyway, it's interesting perspective, because someone who literally went through the spiral, as you called it, to that era of Auburn football, at least the beginning of it. I can understand why you were so beat down with it. So were there any good moments for football that you can remember during your time as a student?
Oh yeah. I was at the barn burner game, Jarrett Holmes field goal game. I never missed a game back then. And actually the 94, it was my first SEC road trip, the 94 Florida game in Gainesville. And this is a great story. We didn't make an overnight trip. We drove down early that morning and went to the game. In Florida at that time, they fragmented their fans, the visiting fans, into whole, small section here, small section there. They don't let everybody sit together, or they didn't. And so I don't even think our tickets were there, but there's this one little block right on the 50-yard line on the Florida alumni side, like right on the ground. Like Damian Craig was standing on the bench in front of us the whole game, but we packed double the people into this one little section there, and we were standing up the whole time. The Florida fans behind us were chanting, "Sit down, Auburn, sit down, Auburn." There's like, whatever, stand up. But we were, and the funny thing about the end of that game is, Nix drops back and he floats that pass to Sanders. But anyway, and so all I saw, because this mass of humanity collapsed, and is I saw a pair of hands come up over the head of the person who was standing on the bench next to me, grab a ball, come down, and then boom, I'm under bodies for like a minute and come back up, and we're kicking off. And so like, wow, this is great. But that was, God, the Auburn chance. Have you ever been to Florida Field?
Yes, I did get the unfortunate, I guess, opportunity to be at the last one, which was a little bit frustrating. But so I'm putting myself there as you're telling this story, and kind of kind of picturing what it must have been like back then.
And heading out, it's such a small place, and the Auburn chants were just echoing through the cavernous, just, I don't know what you call it, but just like when you're exiting your field level, it was deafening. The Auburn chants just flying through there.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to ask you something real quick, just to see if I think about this properly. Have you been to many other SEC stadiums?
I have not.
Okay. Then you might not be able to answer this question, but at least I'm sure you've obviously been to Auburn Stadium and seen the structure to get the bowels to get in and stuff like that. To me, obviously, we're orange and blue glasses on here. We think it's great. You've probably been to other high school or something like that, football stadiums. I have not been in a football stadium who the inside and the outside, meaning the bowl part of where you're actually watching the game and the actual way to get into all of that, are completely night and day. Like you said, it's cavernous. I 100% agree with that. Like, it's swampy down there. It's gross. And you get out into the bowl and it's beautiful from a certain perspective and a great football experience.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? I mean, personally, Florida, it's horrible.
It is. And you feel sorry for it, because, I mean, what can they do? Just bulldoze it? They're not going to do that. But they built it too small probably initially. So it's
yeah, it's not obviously not a fond experience, because we lost the game that I was there, but that's what always has stuck out to me, is just the contrast from the inside to the outside of it. And like, it's just like, oh, I'm glad to be here. It's an awesome experience. Oh, I got to walk back through that. And it's just the worst thing ever. But a great game for you to get experience a terrible structure for a football stadium like that.
Wow. That game, golly, so much fun. Yeah. But also the barn burner game, I was in the student section. I could look back and see flames. It's like, man, I hope the wind keeps blowing that way, or it'd have been terrible. I mean, had the smoke been blowing northwest, or the wind been blowing northwest, it could have gotten ugly. I mean, there'd have been a stampede trying to get out of the student section. I mean, just thankfully, it was blowing away. So
for you as a student sitting in that section, seeing those flames rise up over the ridge of the stadium, I know you said it was a little bit worrisome, but like, how seriously worried were you guys there? Did you have a understanding of how far away the flames were, or was it just kind of one of those things? Well, we're here. There's nothing we can do about it. I mean,
basically, that's what was going through my mind. I'm like, if smoke comes in here, everybody's going to start running and falling, and it's going to be ugly. But we're also young and invincible, so whatever, we'll just wait till it happens, and just go. We'll worry about it if some bad happens. We'll run. Okay.
There's a lot of Auburn sports to talk about, outside of your time at college, which we can touch on that some. But did you get into any other Auburn sports a lot while you were there, other than football, like basketball, baseball, things like that, or was it strictly football for you?
Basketball, baseball as well. I got stories. We this is probably the funniest story I have here. We were in basketball. In Beard Eaves, they had the Cliff Dwellers, which is just some grandstands at the end of the court by the Auburn bench. And at that time, Auburn had Pat Burke like starting center, and Alvin Jefferson was his backup. And Alvin Jefferson looked just like David Robinson. He had these deltoids the size of basketballs, and was just this colossal guy. And Pat Burke, me and a buddy of mine, Rob, we were just getting so frustrated with him, because he had 6 inches and 40 pounds over everybody else on the court, and he's right under the goal, triple pumping, trying to fake people out, finally getting the ball slapped out of his hands. And it's like, the whole crowd's grumbling and everything. And so I yell, "Alvin!" And my buddy Rob picks it right up instead. We didn't even plan it. He says, "Jefferson." But after I yelled Alvin, it's like the whole Beard Eaves just went quiet. And so when he yelled Jefferson, it's like, record scratch, like the whole bench, their heads swivel over. Half of them are laughing, and you talk about that meme, where was this, the Homer Simpson's backing into that bush.
Yep.
It's like, oh man, but it was just and I did another one of those things at a Braves game later too, where everybody seems to shut up right as the time you yell, but that's and the funniest thing was Coach Ellis looked so radish too. And then he points at Pat. He's like, come on. And Pat huffs off the court and Alvin comes in. We're like, yeah, it worked. It worked. So, yeah.
Little did you know that you would affect the outcome of a game. Baseball, you said that you got into. Do you remember any games or anything from there during your time as a student?
Remember, I went to as many as I could, and I actually worked at the Garden of Eden doing landscaping, and we get done with a lot of our jobs, like Huddy's senior year or whatever, and so we would pull up into the parking lot, outside of right field. And we'd get out and we'd sit on our the tractors or whatever and watch the game. And they mercy ruled so many people that year. You had to get there early. You didn't miss a game.
Yeah. It's not like Auburn's had, I forget what season it was, but it felt like we give away the game at the end. You needed to stay to the end to see if it actually was going to end up being an Auburn win. It's the opposite for you. It's like, hey, if you're not there by the third inning, it could be over at that point.
God, that team was brutal. And Huddy, it's a shame that he got drafted into the American League because the dude could hit.
Yep.
You can't tell me that he would not be in some, like high, pitchers, batting average, like the records, because he was, golly, and he stopped pitching and go in left field. If they pull the left fielder, let him, still stay in the lineup to hit. It's just, that guy was insane, man.
Yeah, it was really good talent, and just you saw when he got to the Braves where he got the opportunity to do a little bit more hitting. Some of that came through, but you've been kind of conditioned to just the whole I'm just a pitcher for so long. The American League, it kind of takes that little bit of that talent away that you had, not necessarily take it away, but kind of waters it down, so to speak. So
yeah, he didn't have to hit for so long that he probably lost a lot of
right. Despite having such a frustrating time for football there, you still had some great moments there, especially a great time to be there for baseball, as you said. Maybe a little bit boring, but at least you knew that the team was successful.
Yeah,
you had something to follow there. Before we kind of move away from your time at Auburn, we talked a little bit about school, about sports and stuff like that. What did you get involved with on campus, or do you anything like that, or just hung out with friends? What kind of the traditional campus life, what was that like for you?
Well, I was always interested in club sports. I was actually for 1 year the president of the roller hockey club, and which I'm super proud of our hockey club now. They've taken it to the stratosphere, man. That's really good stuff. But we kind of spiraled downwards because we were playing roller hockey on old tennis court, burning through $30 of wheels a month. It just really wasn't worth it. But my love for club sports, I actually kind of tried to get something started. I went to Auburn architect, and I was like, hey, we need a place to play. And I told him what we'd need, just like concrete slab, sport court, and this guy got on board with, I can't remember his name, but he threw some plans together, and we actually had a meeting. Of course, we had no idea how we were going to pay for it, but he threw some stuff together, and we actually had a meeting at the athletic department. And I believe, hey, it's all Bowden's fault, so we're going to say this tonight. He sent some assistant coach in there to sit there reading the paper, running by interference, and basically saying, this is a waste of time. It's never going to happen. And that got over on me so bad. So I guess Terry Bowden never had a chance with me. So, but why even do that? Well, but anyway, they've taken it and run with it, man. It's a true ice hockey club. They have to travel to Columbus to practice and play, but good for them, man. I could not be more proud of them. And I was also, I was not I was part of the cycling team club. I'm a recreational cyclist, and so I was. I never did anything race wise worth mentioning, but I did ride with them, and I got to wear the orange and blue like my dad, which is part of it. You want to represent, you want to do, and I got smoked, at several races. I did good at one, but that's not what mattered to me. I wasn't I was never going to be as good a cyclist as these guys, they're doing. And you want to talk about something that's crazy. I was blown away. The level of testosterone in one day cyclists who are wearing their SEC colors.
Uh-huh.
It's just good grief, man. It's just like you could bottle that and sell it. It's crazy. But
you seem to have a pretty good insight into the club sports, and that's an area that I have a little bit of a passion for. I won't sit here and say that I'm the biggest advocate for them in the world, but I'm always fascinated by that stuff because I don't think it gets looked at enough. I think hockey, like you brought up, is obviously become a little bit more prominent. People will pay attention to that a little bit. People forget that we used to have a wrestling team as well. I know that actually was a sanctioned sport and stuff like that, but there are so many other aspects of Auburn that people don't really invest in enough that I think that they should. And if you can, and we're not going to sit here and act like football is not the big thing. We've already addressed that, but that's the whole of the Auburn experience. It seems like, my goodness, you had the whole of the Auburn experience: cycling, roller hockey, all that stuff.
I tried to, I had an idea back then in starting, obviously it never happened, but starting something called the Auburn University Club Sports Foundation, where, we could raise money and even maybe hopefully have a facility for, club sports, which, some other schools do. And if anybody out there wants to do it, I'd be happy to help now, but it's, that was near and dear to me. And I just, I always love the people who want to, represent Auburn just because, they love it and they're good at something. And they're,
taking your talents that you have and utilizing the best you can to share the orange and blue with everybody who needs to see it out there. That's
we're the orange and blue.
Round that out. Let's talk a little bit about time outside of Auburn. You were there from 94 to 99, graduated with a graphic design, went on to grad school, and you got involved, obviously, as your degree says, with the world of graphic design. What have you been doing since then, and kind of what have you gotten involved with after graduation and until now? I know that's a lot of years to kind of condense into something, but give us a little perspective about what Chris has been like since then.
After graduation, is worked for a couple of advertising firms in Birmingham. Moved to work with a cousin of mine in Mobile. She's doing web development. And then I moved back home, tried the family business thing for a little while, and then went to grad school. I went there for game development. I'm on the modeling side, the 3D modeling, animation side, and so got out of that and went directly to work with Lockheed Martin. It was a safe bet. My wife was pregnant by the time I was graduating, so having a little girl. So let's go into defense, and so it was pay was a little bit better, hours were a little bit safer, for family. So it was the right thing to do, and worked for them for nearly 10 years now. I'm kind of in the middle. We're out here in Texas now, and hopefully it's time. My wife is just she is a teacher for the hearing impaired, and just an absolutely incredible for the younger kids. She can teach them how to read like nobody else, and she's just unmatched. And so, we're trying to get back, but she's not going to leave a class in the middle of the year. So that's kind of where we are.
Teachers themselves, just the idea of being a teacher is such a calling, but then you take that type of teaching. That's a true calling. And I can appreciate why that's so hard to leave, because Auburn's it's a big goal that a lot of people have. You and I have already talked about this a little bit ourselves, that everybody seems to want to get back there. It's just a race to who can get there the fastest before everything's taken up and too expensive. So that tells you how passionate she is about not just her job, but the people that she's working with right now, the kids. That something alluring as that can't steal it. It hasn't yet stole her away from that. Since you said you're from Texas, though, I asked you a little bit about the Dothan area. What's it like out there in the Texas world in terms of Auburn fandom? Have you got a lot of fans out there to connect with, or
there are a pretty good amount. It's even our church. I'm working at my church now, and actually my boss is our tight end, Brandon Fraser's dad. And,
oh, really?
Yeah. So it's I saw his high school footage and was like, you're kidding me. Like, where's he thinking about going? I said, well, Arkansas, Auburn. I'm like, sweet. So
Anyway, we can convince him that pigs are not way to go.
yeah, exactly. And but he said, he told me that, man, once I set foot on Auburn, I was in love with it.
Yeah.
I was like, sweet. I love that. But anyway, yeah. But anyway, yeah, like our life group, they headed up our life group. They were Auburn people, and they, had almost everyone else, in the class who didn't have an affiliation. They were all Auburn fans by the time it was over with.
So basically it sounds like, kind of fitting to the times we're in right now, you're a little bit of a virus that's infecting people.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was good stuff though. It's, yeah, there are plenty. Yes, there are a lot of, but it is, I mean, I live in Plano, and the cost of living out here is astronomical. Of course, I mean, it's getting there in Auburn too, but it's just ridiculous. So,
how are the Texas A&M fans out there? They pretty friendly? Because to me, every time I've interacted with a Texas A&M fan, they're still so like new and fresh to the SEC. It's almost like they don't want to hurt our feelings too bad. I mean, that's the impression I get. What's it like out there?
Well, most of the ones that I've met, are, I hate to say, are educated, and it's like, and so they're, more civil. But I mean, I've heard of bad ones, but I tell you, since the news of Oklahoma and Texas joining, this is me all the time, Auburn hat all the time, and basically I felt invisible the entire time I've been out here. It's not, I'll get, a random Tide, okay, right, what, but a lot of, not a lot, but some War Eagles, and it's like, hey, War Eagle back, but since the news of them joining the SEC, I have gotten so many scowls, and I'll look down and they're wearing Oklahoma gear or UT gear. Dude, they know the cakewalk's over. Their athletic department's like, sweet, we got all this money. They're like, screw it, we're not going to see the national championship for another 2 decades. And I mean, the sports guys out here, we have a great radio station called The Ticket. I love listening to them, and their take on it, or one guy's take that he sticks by, is, this really hadn't worked out like Texas A&M thought it was going to, where they're going to just join up and whip it. They really haven't won anything since they, and that's what blows me away about this whole thing. It's just, okay, now you limit your chances to go undefeated. 13 out of the last 20 years, Oklahoma's won their conference. Why would you leave that? And they're already getting more money than any of the other teams. That's why all the other teams are like, bye. But oh God, the change, so much change is just, it's frightening, honestly.
It is a little bit scary. I will admit that. And when I saw the reality of it taking place, I was like, oh, wow, this is real. This isn't like somebody just conjecture saying something. This is this is something that's been in the works for a while. We just didn't know. It makes you wonder, what else is Greg Sankey capable of if he can pull this off and nobody know anything about it? I mean, he's a genius. Like,
yes, and that was their take, on the radio station out here, is like, how they were literally, these guys have been on this show for 20 years out here. They're like, I still don't know, how did they keep this a secret? We haven't heard a peep about this. It's amazing. How did they do it?
And if they the only reason it leaked is because they wanted it to leak, because they were ready for it to. So it's impressive, and it's going to be a little bit interesting, especially if you spend a few more years out there. To really see what that becomes like as now traditional, well, not traditional, but more contemporary SEC country. Because it's weird to still think of Texas A&M out there being SEC, but now that Austin's involved in that, all the way up to Oklahoma, hey man, it's fair game at this point. Tennessee, from Tennessee over, or in Kentucky over, it's all SEC.
Yeah, I was never a fan of the Missouri A&M edition in the first place, because it affected us more than anyone else, but that's frustrating. But
a couple more things that I want to hit on though before we kind of wrap up. I want to give you an opportunity. There's been a lot that's happened sports wise since you graduated. We touched on a lot of your time there as frustrating as it could have been for like football. But anything that you want to share as being an Auburn fan in, the Tommy Tuberville, Gene Chizik, Gus Malzahn era games, memories that you kind of want to hit on?
Yeah, I went to the 86 game. I have a few stories. The 86 University of Florida game, my uncle and my dad were private pilots. And so, we flew up to that game, which is, the only game where Emmitt Smith was ever held under 100 yards rushing. And we got tickets last second. We were 50-yard line on the alumni side, row 1. So it was like, so on the play, Slack to Wasden, all the players were standing up on the bench. And so we couldn't see anything. And it was another one of those things where I saw hands come up, grab a ball, and then just everybody goes nuts. And so, because we couldn't see anything, there's just a mountain or just a wall of, human or football players just in between us and the game. So we didn't see much of it, but we were there. So, and another story that I want to tell, when I was in 10th grade, I was working at Burger King in the Wiregrass Commons Mall in Dothan, Alabama. And I see this table sitting outside of one of the department stores, and it says, Pat Dye, to be here to sign autographs, whatever. So I'm like, all right, I'm a broke high school student. I don't have $40 to go buy a football for him to sign. So I walk through the mall in my, Burger King uniform, go to the sporting goods store, and I buy a baseball. And so walk up to, I'm like the first one there when he comes in, because it's like right next to the food court. So I could just pop out. It's like, hey, coach. And I hand him a baseball. He's like, well, nobody's ever asked me to sign one of these before. I said, yeah, well, I can't really afford a football. I'm not the one you should have, signing some of baseball. You should have Bo Jackson or Frank Thomas sign. I'm like, can you make that happen? Oh, no, I ain't seen them since they left Auburn. But anyway, it's like I probably have one of the only autographed Pat Dye baseballs.
That's funny.
It is.
He was athletic director though, so it would have made sense for him to do it.
He is actually sitting right next to my Ted Williams ball. So,
that's quite a bit of a contrast there. Ted Williams makes sense. Yeah. Pretty big ball to have signed, and Pat Dye signed baseball. You don't hear that but very much every day.
Yeah, War Eagle, Pat Dye. So there's and another time we came to the 88 A-Day game, and but for some reason my dad and his friend Mr. Milner were just hanging around late, and so they let us run around. And for several hours after the game, so we ran over to the inflatable practice bubble, over there where we're sneaking around looking for people, and we bust up into that thing completely empty. You talk about something you remember as a kid. We were in there throwing Auburn footballs on Auburn's practice turf by ourselves for like 30 minutes, just by ourselves. Like, this is, talking about a fun. We're expecting the cops to, come in there at any second and be like, "Your kids, get out of here." But it's, I love that actually happened.
That is a really cool story. And the funny thing is, I'm thinking back to a previous episode, and I'm blanking on the number of it, but Josh Dowdy has a story about driving a car into the actual up ramps into the stadium. So between you two. Breaking into the stadium, I'm amazed that we actually have a stadium still to go in there too. So, hey, look, our love for Auburn sometimes takes us to places and causes us to do things sometimes we're maybe not proud of, or maybe we are in some small part of us, but it's just kind of who we are. It comes out of us in unique ways. Before we go, though, I would like to give you an opportunity. We kind of alluded to this. We talked a lot about your time as a graphic design student, and now after that, you've gotten involved with the Auburn Minecraft project and helped become a big part of that and bringing that to fruition. Now, I will tell the listeners, again, if you want to get lots of detail on that, you can go back and find that as an E2C Extra episode. Just type in Auburn and Minecraft. It'll come right up for you on our main feed or anywhere on the internet, really. And I would suggest you do that because it's a really cool thing. But I just want to give you, Chris, just a minute or two just to kind of tell people what it is, kind of what you're doing, just so that people kind of understand what it is. Because Auburn and then Minecraft, the video game where you can build worlds, but I'll let you take it from there and explain it.
Okay. Yeah, it's a guy named Trey Long initially built it while he was in school. Um, he's an electrical engineer from Auburn, but he was in Minecraft's a world where it's just 1 meter blocks, and it just you can build whatever you want. And so he loved. That's another dude that loves Auburn. He's an Auburn history buff. Anything Auburn, he'll eat it up. But he built the initial campus more just strictly worried about the accuracy of the architecture, and he made these videos of it and put them on YouTube. And my daughter is just a humongous Minecraft fan, and she showed these to me like 5 years ago. I was blown away. I got out of video game graduate school, and I wanted to. My goal, I wanted to have an open source 3D modeling project, that had an accurate Auburn University campus that we keep updated for use in, say, first person shooter games. And like another project I never really got going. I have all these ideas, but once I got that world from him, and all I wanted to do is expand it, because he just built and he cut it off right behind Parker and Allison there, but I wanted to go out further, and so he gave me the world, and so I started expanding it. And then just a little over a year ago, we came into this plugin that allowed us to get GIS sourced terrain into Minecraft, which put the believability of it over the top.
Right.
And so it took a lot of work, but it's at a point now where
it's recognizable, like watching it come up.
Some of these screenshots I'm taking, and the immersion factor is we got this terrain right. When you're in this game is absolutely, I'm bragging. This is impressive. It is really, the accuracy of what we're doing is, it's unmatched. We're both, like, all right, what do you want to do? It's like, do we want to square this off? And the only thing that's going to end up squared off in that game, build north-south, because, building stuff with cubes, this at an odd angle is hard, to make it look good. Jordan-Hare is straight up north-south, and I doubt that we ever fix that, but everything else will be built, accurately, whether, it's ugly or not. It's just, we want it to be, correct and look like, I want it to be where if you blur these images, these screenshots of this game, you possibly could fool somebody that it's not it's the real thing. And that's the goal. And it's, why, there's no money in it. It's because it's fun and it's what I love to do. And we're both good at it, but we're doing it because people enjoy it. It's blown up even the past couple of weeks, because we've had some like really good days taking some screenshots and posting them, and people are just, they're blown away. And so you can find, MC Aubie at Twitter or Instagram, and just there are tons of pictures there, and the
Auburn Minecraft project on YouTube, correct? If that's the way.
Yes.
To find it. Yep.
Yes, and there's going to be a new video coming. I've been telling you about it for a while, but I'm kind of in my perfectionist mode trying to get it done. That it's coming, and it'll visually explain the history of everything that's gone on, and it's going to be fantastic. But
it's really been fascinating to watch, just since we've done the episode and now talking to you, what you've accomplished since then. And there have been times where I've been just scrolling through on social media, and then I'll come past one of yours, and then I have to stop, and I'm like, hold on, did they get some new graphics capability to make it look real? I'm like, no, wait, hold on. Now that I've stopped, I see that's Minecraft. There's some blocky areas to it and stuff like that. But that's how, like, I just zoomed past as like somebody just did another pretty picture of campus. So yes, it is getting to a point where you guys now are actually able to capture the rolling plains of Dixie, as it says, in our alma mater. So I think it's a really cool project. It's something that I think people should be aware of. And I hope you will go follow these two guys and their passion that they have for this. And we'll just kind of keep watching, not just the campus, not just the sports venues, but the community of Auburn,
everything else
around it. Yeah.
And we're making it to eventually release, for everybody to play. But not, and it's, it's not going to be complete when we release it, and we can't build, everything
Auburn's
inside
not
the
complete right now.
Parkway. Yeah, and it'll change a week later, so who cares?
Right.
But there is some point in the future where we will release it. It's going to be hard, especially for people playing on consoles, because right now this save file is 5 gigs, and it's such a huge file. So like, all right, you can give it a shot, but and I'm not paying for those hosting fees. So, but there's one more thing I wanted to tell you about. I worked. This is a real funny story. I worked at Blockbuster out on the Opelika Highway when I was there as well. And I was sitting there one day, rewinding tapes and dinging people's accounts, with bad quotes. It's like, this fool has never rewound a single tape since he's rented from us, whatever. But anyway, I'm sitting there and I look up and Takeo Spikes walks through the door, and it was after his freshman year, spring of his freshman year, and he says, "Hey, I need to get an account." I'm like, "Where you go, Takeo? Yeah, I just need to see your driver's license." He looks back and forth. He said, "You know who I am?" Of course I know who you are, man. I'm a big fan. It's like, War Eagle. It's like, oh man, thank you. He's the sweetest dude, and just, as nice as the day is long, man. And he was, so I issued to Takeo Spikes his Universal Blockbuster card. So
and nobody else can say that.
So yeah, and he was, and that also, one of my best friends, I lived with him, Philip Watson, working at Blockbuster, allowed me to do one of the best college practical jokes that I've ever pulled off. And that was, those little magnetic strips that, you have to demagnetize when people walk through, whatever, it'll beep, 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 beep.
Right.
It took a few of those home, and he had left his wallet out on the speaker, and I opened it up and opened up a flap, and like, I put one of those strips deep, like under a secondary flap where it was really hard to find. And they didn't come into Blockbuster that often because, "Hey, Chris, did you pick up a movie?" I'd bring it home, but it was like 3 weeks after I did it. I almost forgotten that I'd done it. And he and Amanda came in, and he gets to go through, and he walks through, and they're like, beep, 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 and everybody turns. And that's the first time, I don't know how I kept a straight face, because at that exact time, I realized that it was me. But I did it. I don't know how. I kept, what's going on? And they tried and tried and tried, and he never pulled his wallet back out. They were trying to pass the bag of VHS tapes around it or something. Finally, they're like, "No, he's paid for it. Going out." It's like a month and a half went by, like at least 3 episodes of this happening, and finally he took everything out of his wallet and finally found the strip. He figured it out, but it just, it was like, he's like, because he actually did. We got back a few weeks later. He said, "You probably put one of the strips in there," but he couldn't find it because I'd hit it, inside of, like I said earlier. But that was great. That was good stuff.
Lots of stories, lots of experiences, and one of the most diverse whole Auburn stories that I've heard in quite some time. So you have done it all, sir, in and out of Auburn, and it's a pretty cool story that I've enjoyed hearing about. But you're not done yet.
All right.
You've listened before. You know the drill. We got to do the not so rapid fire questionnaire to get you out of here and checked off on your Auburn roots. So we got 12 questions. Let's start with number 1, orange or blue?
Blue.
Why?
Blue, definitely. Just navy blue is my favorite color, and I do love orange. And also my wife's favorite color is navy blue, and her wedding dress was navy blue.
Just worked out. It's like it was meant to be or something.
Absolutely. It's fantastic.
Question 2, Aubie or War Eagle?
Aubie. And, halfway through college, I can't remember which friend it was. He said, "Why didn't you try out to be Aubie? You'd have been..."
You did everything else.
Well, see, because I'm goofy as all get out, and oh my gosh, you'd have been great. All the ones now are, some of the best dancers you'll know. They weren't like that back then.
Right.
You had, the Aubies that one of them was jumping on a pogo stick on his platform, like in front of the student section, and he actually went off, and his leg went down in between the fence, and he was laying in the bush, but he really messed up his knee, and they had to come and pull him off or whatever, but it's just random stuff like that. But, I would have, it would have been the probably the favorite thing I could say I ever did in my life if I had a chance to be Aubie. He's the best.
It's hard to beat that cat. We love him so much. Question 3: what's your favorite part of the Auburn fight song? Word, phrase, any of it.
The go, go, go with paper shakers, preferably.
With paper shakers.
with the dust coming off of them. Like Pat Dye said in '89, so they were shaking them shakers so bad you could see orange haze in the air. There's something about those old paper shakers. I wish we had them every game.
I think it was episode 19. I had Letitia DeRoe on, and she's the cheerleading sponsor. And I asked her if we could ever have those back, and she said, "As long as I'm here, it won't happen."
Aw, Letitia, come on.
I tried real hard, but I don't think she's going to be convinced to have to help in that cleanup process ever again. Question 4 might be an easy one. Your favorite Auburn athletics program?
That's football.
Yeah.
Can't beat football.
It's hard to beat it. Question 5, maybe a little bit tougher. Your favorite Auburn athlete of all time?
This is a hard one because this
is where people start struggling a little bit.
Yeah, but I want to say Bo. I mean, that image up there, that my first game in Mississippi State, '85. And Chuck. It's like, how can you? I love Chuck's humor, man. I can't. It's probably Charles Barkley. I can't. I like to say Chiquio Spikes because I met him. But Charles Barkley, you gotta love the guy. He's just hilarious, and
right.
And he embodies love for Auburn because it hadn't waned an ounce with him.
Well, he's really come into his own as an ambassador for Auburn, not just the school, not just the team, but just as the Auburn family. And I really like watching his journey. Not to say that he wasn't that way before, but it's just it's becoming more of a thing. And I think he's learned to appreciate that more and more, and what he's really kind of not necessarily lucked into, but found himself lucky enough to be a part of. So that's a really cool thing to kind of watch that journey for him. Question 6, your favorite Auburn coach of all time?
Well, I gotta say, it's at this point, it's Bruce Pearl. I mean, just because it's just unbelievable. I mean, outside of that, Tommy Tuberville, because just seven wins, man. You can't.
It's hard to beat that. We were talking about earlier about why it was so easy for him to kind of assimilate back into the Auburn family after being let go. 7 wins in a row against your rival.
Yeah,
that's the ticket. If any other Auburn coach wants an instant endearment towards the fans, 7 wins in a row pretty gets you solidly in there forever.
Yeah,
no matter what you do, probably. Question 7, your favorite Auburn non-athletics person. So this can be anybody, a friend, a family member, a celebrity that's not athletics related, a professor, anybody. When I think of Auburn, I think of this person.
It's kind of athletics related, but not athlete or coach. Probably Jim Fife.
I'll allow it. I will allow it.
Because when I was a kid in our family business on Saturdays, we worked half the day, and so I would try to finish with my stuff early so I could run to the car, and turn on the radio. Just like, all right, and happy to hear him. He painted the picture of where I wanted to be at that moment. And God, his love for Auburn was incredible as well. But he was a Titan, man, and just didn't realize how good he was until he was gone. And you go back and you rewatch these games and re-listen to just how perfectly he laid the stuff out. I mean, it gives me chills. I'll go and watch that YouTube video once a month, of just all his greatest calls. And I mean, and Rob did a good job following up, but man, Jim Fife's death hurt like a family member.
It did.
It was just, and at that '88 A-Day game, it was one of those things. I was just being completely blown away that whole weekend. I saw him, scurrying across the street in between Plainsman Park and Jordan Hare, like an eager kid ready to get this next thing. And he was almost taken aback, that I was like, "Hey, Mr. Fife, hey, can I shake your hand? He's like, whoa, sure, thank you. Just, just in his, just a sweet guy, and just, would wonder why anyone would, ever want to, meet him or what. That got over on me a little bit. Just
a quiet strength that kind of exuded from that we sometimes will associate with members of the Auburn family. It's why we endeared so closely to him, and it is sad to not have him in here anymore, and as well as Rod. But it's all the more special memories now, simply because of, not just because they were Auburn related, but because of the type of people they were as part of the Auburn family. Let's see, question 8. Your favorite Auburn building? You should know this very well, being the
Plainsman
Minecraft
Park.
project.
Yes, I did. Because I built Plainsman Park from the brick up. It's not as impressive as that you're in here, but it is. I love the fact that we had that ridiculous electrical farm there they can't do anything with, so we have to build Green Monster to hide it. But it's worked out so well. And then that new science building up on the hill, they painted the adjacent buildings that dark gray. All of that part of campus is coming to look so good, and it's Plainsman Park is just fantastic in the first place. Yeah, I mean, it's a classical looking, there's nothing. I mean, I guess it's hard. There's nothing stupid about Plainsman Park. I mean, I watch other games and it's like Athens. God, something about what's like right behind there. It's like they got these fences with people and chairs or something behind it. It's just everything about Plainsman Park is just. It's class, and I mean, love it.
And it is a place of a lot of conglomeration of different things, whether it be the big green monster or just other elements of it that have kind of been brought together to form a more perfect union, if I may steal a phrase right there, to make what now is, even with a big electrical farm in the background, that kind of almost adds to the character of it, even though it's kind of blocked now. We all know it's back there because there was a time it was just wide out in the open there in the outfield.
so ugly. Yeah.
Let's see. Question 9, your favorite Auburn place to eat?
It was Buffalo Connection. When they opened that up, Byron Franklin, then it's that place was fantastic. It kind of did the Terry Bowden thing. It was a slow spiral downward from the time it opened up. And actually there's a bad story. I was I'm on a message board with a guy that was working there at the end, and evidently, these two women that were running it were also selling drugs out of the place. And it's like, he said, my last day there was when the feds showed up or something.
Wow.
So, wow. But man, it's like there are a lot of people, who are in Buffalo Connection. Just bring it back.
That's the first time we've had Buffalo Connection that I can recall mentioned in this questionnaire. So first time for everything, and wow, what an ending to it as well.
Spent way too much money at that place. But
question 10, your favorite Auburn tradition? This can be sports, non-sports, a weird personal tradition you have for yourself, but your favorite Auburn tradition.
The memory of the old school tailgating. There was, like when I was in school, the RV showed up on Thursday, and they're parking all over campus. There's a guy right in front of I think it's Keller Hall on the right on the campus green, right on there. But he was at that corner, and you cannot walk by this dude's RV as a student without him offering you a hamburger or a hot dog. And it's just like, wow. And it just, all these people, and baseball tailgating. There used to be baseball, like for the big series against Alabama in that, I think it was 97. They would rent U-Hauls and park along the outfield fence, and we'd be up on top of those. And there's a real funny story, and I ended up on the one that Todd Botcher rented, and we caught somebody. I'm not sure if he caught it, but somebody on top of this truck caught Roberto Vaz's home run, and they either handed it to Todd or he caught it. He rears back, throws this thing back at him, almost hits Roberto Vaz at second base, and just everybody's like, whoa, good arm, man.
Little cannon you got there.
But it was, I just missed the old, and a lot of people do, the old school tailgating, just the
there was something, there's not, we do it differently now, obviously, and it's going to probably be revered at some point way off in the distance. People will be wishing we did it the old way back when we're doing it now. But I remember growing up, and there was just this kind of air in the air. I know that's kind of oxymoronic to say it, but just a feeling in the air when you were just walking around campus before a game, the smells, the sounds that we're hearing, the feeling that you got there. So I connect with what you're saying there, and I kind of get what you're saying. We got 2 more questions. Your number 11 favorite Auburn memory.
This is that 99 basketball team, and probably one of my favorite Jim Fife calls ever is the beginning of the Ole Miss game, and we're up 18-4. Doc Robinson comes just over, center court, and he launches this alley-oop. Bryant Smith reverse slam alley-oops from midcourt, and Jim Fife's call, he says, "It's 20-4 Auburn, and this place is going wacko." And I was there, and he's right. I was just like, those guys were so good that year. And they brought so much. That was at the bottom of that spiral we keep talking about. That was when that basketball team emerged, and we needed that energy so much. That was, what a team.
Isn't it funny that while one program or something may not be as good, something else is kind of picking us up a little bit, and I know it's easy to maybe do that when you've got so many, it feels more than a handful of programs, I think it's like 12 or something like that. It feels like there's always something to kind of take pride in at Auburn, but Auburn's just a school of excellence.
Yep.
Doesn't mean that you're always at the top of your game, but there's usually always something to be very, very proud of. Academics, athletics, community-wise, lot to take pride in. So not shocking that kind of got you out of that deadly spiral that you've been in with football for a little bit. Let's round out our discussion with this final question, number 12. Describe Auburn to me in one word other than family.
It's got to be love. Just
nice.
I mean, that's why we treat each other so well. You can be in groups of people with Auburn who are just completely different, politically, any difference, but there's going to be a respect that, I don't want to screw up this friendship. And since that's not just being kind. That care for, the other people in the Auburn family, it's based in love, and that's what it is.
I think if I may steal a phrase from the late Pat Dye, it doesn't make any difference, just as long as it's got a blue jersey on.
There you go.
I think it's a great way to wrap up your word, which is, I don't know if we've had love before on here, but I'm surprised it's taken this long to get there, or has not been used as often, because I think that's a great way to round out what Auburn has that makes it so special, and why we love being a part of the Auburn family. Chris, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your Auburn story, getting to know your Auburn roots, about what makes you tick. Everything from roller hockey to Blockbuster to being in the Navy to living out in Texas. I just feel like we've covered every single thing, but thank you for spending your time with us.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. I'm glad this is rolling for you. I'm loving hearing all the stories, and I appreciate you letting me tell you mine.
Of course.
It's just a random dabble, like you say, of a whole bunch of micro stories, but hey, it's just what made my time special.
It's what makes your time special, and what makes Auburn special. And that's going to do it for this episode 36 of Auburn Roots. Thank you to Chris, and thank you to listeners for tuning in. Until next time, War Eagle.